Welcome to Investors Guide. You're watching ET Now. I'm Faye D'Souza. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, Jitendra Kochar has written in Dhirendra. He has a 12-year-old son with a learning disability. Now, he tells us he applied for a life insurance policy to secure his son's future in December last year, was rejected by LIC. And he right now puts aside 1 lakh rupees in his PPF account for his son's future. He's saying he's worried his son might not be able to pick up a normal job or have his own business when he finishes school. So he wants to provide him with a stable income. Dhirendra, for a case like this, the PPF does seem like a go-to type of investment. Would you recommend just the PPF? Does it make sense to add something else to it when he's making these investments?
No, not at all. PPF may not be a very suited investment because given that, you need to invest and it should accumulate as much as possible, it should grow rapidly and more so when you have time on your side. So I think, something like our stable growth portfolio will be far more productive, will be far more rewarding. Because once you accumulate and from there on, once you have to derive that income, that money gets into, a no growth zone, so to say. Even then, you need to really invest it in a manner that it is at least beating inflation or partially beating inflation, even if you start consuming it. So first, till you are not dependent on that accumulation for income, it should grow well, grow nicely. And that is not happening in PPF. So I would say that you should look at, either our stable growth portfolio at least, or our, growth portfolio or aggressive growth portfolio, till you are not looking at drawing income from this accumulation. Then comes, how to draw from that depends. It should be done in a manner that it is, the residual capital is partially able to beat inflation. So at any stage for a long-term investment from which you need to draw income should not be entirely into fixed income, and which PPF is. So PPF is a very unsuited investment for, at least in the, completely unsuited investment in the accumulation phase.
Well, Dhirendra, I want to ask you a question for the rest of the parents who are watching, who might have special children or children with special needs at home, who would have the same question to ask you. How do we put aside money for our children to make sure that they're looked after? How do we make sure that the money that we're putting aside right now is used responsibly by whoever is the guardian? Would there be advice right now for those parents as well, for parents who are looking to provide for their children right through the course of their lives?
Yeah, I think, one has to clearly divide, such needs into broadly into two categories. One is where with clear disability, where the child will be constrained to conduct normal, life. Here, the kids will be independent. They will be, they will also be responsible citizens. And just that, they will be slow in learning things, or they will be little hyperactive. I think you spend time. I think, investing in the treatment and looking at it as an ailment will be more rewarding, more productive, and a permanent solution. That apart, I think, one has to look at it as a normal financial goal, that you need to provide for a supplementary income or a complete, total provision for income over for a lifetime. That is not easy because for somebody who is, so all that you can provide is, some, imbibing some responsible behavior for the child. But prior to that, this particular condition, which should be, very looked upon very objectively as a medical condition which can be treated.
All right, so this is the advice for parents who are watching at home, parents with children of special needs and regular parents with regular children. You should always have a will that you make, and make one right now. Make sure you list out and you think about it carefully. Point out a guardian for your child in case you are no longer around, and make very clear instructions in your will of what happens to the money that you're leaving for your child in case the child is still a minor when that comes around. So you have to keep all of these things in mind, and of course you can write back to us if you need help with any of those things at all. We're here to help you on the show. Let's move on to our portfolio question. RINKESH has written in, Dhirendra, he's an NRI with a salary of 20 lakh rupees. He tells us he has a term cover of up to 80 lakhs. He has a health cover as well. Now, he invests approximately 32,000 rupees a year in various insurance plans. He has the LIC Jeevan Saral, Max Whole Life and LIC Endowment. He has money in fixed deposits and in his bank account. He also buys gold whenever he can. His goals are, and interestingly, he wants to set aside some money for medical expenses, which confuses me because if he has health insurance, he doesn't need to set that money aside. He also wants to save about 4 lakh rupees for his son's education and 6 for his, for his marriage. Again, that seems a little, underestimated in my opinion. And then he has a lot of mutual funds to consider as well. Let's start at the top of his portfolio. 3 insurance policies, not the best picks for a portfolio like this one with a longer term horizon. Would you recommend he exits all of them?
Yes, he's halfway through with the plan, in the sense that he should have term plan which adequately covers his worst case scenario. And he has covered that ground partially. He should methodically discontinue his endowment policy as well as the ULIP, and before that get adequate term cover and go for the additional accidental insurance rider and things like that on his term plan itself. So his two term plans which he has, he needs to increase his cover and methodically discontinue his all other policies which are investment as well as insurance, which is not the finest way to reach, to get protection for your family.
All right, now let's take a look at the rest of his investments, Dhirendra. He has about 4 lakh rupees in his savings bank account. Now, that I don't understand as an NRI why he has an Indian savings account. It should all be that NRI account. He has 4 lakh rupees in fixed deposits. So one of these could be that emergency fund he was talking about, which means he automatically doesn't need the other. It's a fair amount of money in property right now. And I'm very concerned about the money he's putting into gold at this point. He also has the gold's, the ETF that he's investing in. And he's been putting money in it every year. Would you recommend he stops that first up?
Yes, I would urge him to, look at things financially. If he has need to, or if he is likely to need gold for consumption for his daughter's wedding or something like that, many years from now, he should, he should take care of it elsewhere. He should take care of it in a financial way, that he's saving, he's investing his savings for it to, to grow, and it should not be necessarily done through a gold fund or by physically holding gold, because I'm not very upbeat about possibility of gold beating equity over a long period of time. So his money can grow well and he can consume that as and when he needs it. So he will be better off discontinuing this plan.
He has interesting mutual funds. They seem like they've been picked based on the advice he's heard on this show. IPRU Blue Chip, Quantum Long Term, ICICI Prudential Discovery, HDFC Prudence, ICICI Balanced and Reliance Equity Opportunities. Now, when you look at his equity portfolio altogether, and he's going to add more money to this portfolio, both as SIPs and as long-term, is there a way he can consolidate it and make it easier to manage? Would you like to make any changes to what he has right now?
No, I think he has an excellent portfolio. And I would say that, 2 of his funds are good, growth-oriented funds. 2 of his funds are conservative. So, so I would suggest him to, look at his portfolio, the individual investments in his portfolio, if he's mentally able to link them to a specific goal. So he will be aware that how, whether he's on track or whether he's, investing adequately or he's investing enough to achieve those goals for those time frames. So mentally linking it, he will be able to keep track of things and make changes accordingly, or he will have a reasonable sense of how close he's getting to his goals.
All right, so that's all of the advice we can give you based on that entire 2-page question you sent us. Now, while the advice on equity might seem exciting, don't forget the advice at the beginning of our answer. Exit the endowment plans and the ULIP plans and the whole life plans and increase your life insurance cover right now. Increase your health insurance cover as well, so then you don't have to set aside extra money in case of health emergencies. If you have more questions, feel free to write back to us. Welcome back. You're watching Investors Guide on ET Now. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for our product review, and this week we're looking at the DSP BlackRock Equity Fund. Avan is here to give us an introduction. Avan.
Thanks, Faye. The fund in the spotlight this week is the DSP BlackRock Equity. This fund was on top of our list about 5 years ago because of its strong performance. But the downturn of 2008 hit this fund hard, and it has not managed to impress us ever since. The fund manager picks stocks based on the company's growth prospects, cash flows, quantitative and qualitative parameters. Even though the fund's performance over a 10-year period has been impressive, it's been slipping in the ranks over the last 3 years. Over the year, the fund rewarded its investors up to 51% returns in line with the category average. So should this fund continue to be a part of your portfolio? Let's find out. With that, it's back to you, Faye.
All right, Avan. The DSP BlackRock Equity Fund had a fairly rough time when the markets were down, although it has recovered quite smartly this year. But is that enough to change your mind about the fund?
No, I'm afraid, this is not proving, this limited one-year performance is just proving the point that, this was an outstanding fund. It was part of our recommendation when we started Investors Guide 5-6 years ago. This is a fund which has done well in good times. It has really struggled in bad times. And it has been a fairly mediocre fund in the last 3-4 years. And good times again, and it's doing well. It is not a horrible fund. It is not a very bad fund, but relative to all other funds, options available to investor, it doesn't really stand out. It is on a risk-adjusted scale. It has below average return relative to other funds in the multi-cap category, and above average risk, which doesn't really balance as a it does not present itself as a very interesting, compelling choice.
Well, Dhirendra, last time we talked about this fund, you gave it 3 stars. Would you continue to give it 3 stars on the show?
Yes, I would like to maintain my 3 star. As I said earlier, that it's not a horrible fund, but it has been very nicely settled in the last 3-4 years. In fact, last year was an extremely disappointing year for this fund when it was unable to beat its own benchmark too. But in absolute terms, investors have derived something from this fund, but yes, I would like to maintain it at 3 stars.
3 stars for the DSP BlackRock Equity Fund on Investors Guide. Dhirendra, very quick question for you. Now, for those of our investors who have, made a decent profit from this fund over the last 1 year, you say it's not the best option in its pack at this point. Does it make sense to pull our money out? And if yes, where would you like us to move that money to?
I would like investors to get into our selection of large and mid cap fund or multi-cap fund selection. This definitely does not present a nice choice.
Right, our multi-cap selection is on your screen right now, and remember, in the first week of January we will have a new list for the new year, and that will be on this show as well. Dhirendra, a very quick question for you. Rabneet has written in from Jalandhar. She's a 60-year-old housewife who's managed to put together 15 lakh rupees over the years by investing in mutual funds. She's pulled that money out right now and she's investing it. She'd like to save tax, which means she doesn't exactly want to use a fixed deposit. What are the other options that she can use right now? She also has the ICICI regular savings fund. Should she continue to hold that fund?
Yeah, for somebody like her, that regular savings fund might prove to be an efficient vehicle. Also, I feel that such a fund will be able to deliver you a little more return than fixed deposit. But more importantly, something which you should take note of is that your capital will remain constant if you consume all the gains, and the gains will not be all that much. Getting 1.5% more, and even getting it in a tax efficient manner without any TDS. Does not mean something which is going to cause a huge difference to your income. So I would suggest and if you're 60-year-old and if your needs will be much more, and if your capital remains constant, and if you are able to, and if you consume all the income derived from this capital, it is very important that you invest a small part of your money, whatever part you are comfortable with, still in equity. And because otherwise you run the risk of outliving your savings, assuming that at some point the income will not be enough, because over time your need for rising income will also exist. So from that standpoint, to supplement the need to fulfill the need of rising income, a part of your money should definitely go into equity, as this is a long-term allocation. And yes, such funds are good to derive income on a less periodic basis.
So continue holding that fund, and if you have any more questions, you can get back in touch with us. Rajesh Sharma writes in, Dhirendra, he wants to know if he can, in addition to the Defence Officers Service Provident Fund, open a PPF account as well. Is that something you recommend? Now, on this show, we categorically say you don't need PPF if you already have the PF, irrespective of whether that's the Defence Officers Fund or a regular EPF. But specifically for all of the officers who are watching the show, Dhirendra, what advice would you give them?
One is the feasibility of it. Yes, defense officers can open a PPF account. There is only some restrictions. Some insurance company do not sell large insurance policies to some defense personnel. That's about it. Otherwise, there is no constraint. All these schemes are available to all Indian citizens, which a defense personnel is very much, I would say, that is first among equals among Indian citizens. So there is no such embargo. That's a legal, technical part of it. But other thing is that should he go for PPF? I don't think so, because I know in a limited way that Army Group Insurance for the Army provides insurance as well as savings plan, which is near, which I would say will yield you somewhat like a besides the insurance cover. It also provides you somewhat like a quasi-fixed income kind of, has quasi-fixed income kind of orientation. So you should be investing in growth. And of course, it looks tempting that you are able to derive, tax-free income from PPF. But even in a balanced fund, all the income that you derive is completely tax-free. So just in case you are completely convinced of, PPF, invest half of your money into a balanced fund. Try it out for 2-3 years. I don't think you need our opinion after that.
All right, so a list of balanced funds are on your screen right now, and if you have any more questions, you can get back in touch with us. Dhirendra, thank you so much for answering our questions this week. As always, we look forward to bringing in the new year with you as well. Welcome back. You're watching Investors Guide in ET Now. We brought in Vishal Kapoor to answer the questions you have about your asset allocation. Vishal is our asset allocation expert. Vishal, thank you so much for joining us. Shrikant has written in, he's 25 years old with a monthly take-home of 24,000 rupees, out of which he saves 8,000 rupees. We're so proud of you, Shrikant. Now, he tells us he has 1 lakh rupees in his savings bank account and he's looking for a short-term investment with a horizon of 2 to 3 years. Where should he invest that money? Now, Vishal, he hasn't told us what his goals are, and I would personally like for someone this young to start a long-term investment as well. So you have to start putting some money away into equity that will stick around for the next 10 or 20 years for when you get married and you have children, or sometime in the future when you do retire. But looking at your short-term investment, Vishal, a debt fund, would that suit him?
Shrikant, I think you should be first looking at a term insurance cover so that your mom, who's dependent on you, does have the benefit of protection in the case something happens. You should also look at a health insurance plan for both yourself as well as your mom. And third, for the specific objective you have of saving with a 2 to 3 year time horizon from here, because you're planning to get married, I think a short-term bond fund may be most appropriate right now. So you have a very wide range available. You could choose from a couple of them. These will be relatively safe because they're not taking a lot of duration risks, and an accrual strategy will give you a reasonable return based on a corporate bond portfolio or a government bond portfolio, and that should give you a nice corpus to play with.
Next question comes in from Ronak Shah. He wants to invest in just one fund for his retirement corpus. He wants to know where he should invest that money. He has a 20-year horizon or so, Vishal. So that's a good thing. As a young person looking at investing for the next 20 years. But the tough portion is picking only one fund. Now, Ronak, ideally, I would like you to pick more than one fund, maybe 2 or 3, so that you bring down the risk and not put all of your eggs in that one basket. But Vishal, if you were to recommend a fund for him, what would it be?
Ronak, for your objective, I know that you're looking for simplicity through just one fund, and there are products like that available in the market, which could be through a fund of funds or an asset allocation approach. What these will do is that take a certain target maturity that you have, which is when you want to retire, and modify the portfolio over a period of time, by moving money from fixed income to equity over a period. So that may be a good one-stop solution for you to meet your retirement objective. But if you want to look at what may be issues that you want to be aware of, one could be performance, which is that these funds, since all your money is in one fund or one manager in terms of selecting fund of funds, you want to make sure that it is actually performing at the top level. And 2 is that you have to review asset allocation that the fund manager is making over a period of time. The alternative approach would be that you do it yourself, which is build a portfolio of a few funds, or take a growth portfolio to start with, for example, and review both performance as well as asset allocation over a period of time. So as you approach retirement, you're moving more of your money from equity to fixed income on a bit of a sliding scale basis. Both approaches can work. It just depends on how much work you want to do and how much simplicity you want in your investment portfolio.
All right, last question on the show. Ranjit Datta has written in, 29 years old, wants to put aside 10,000 rupees every month for the next 5 years with no specific goal in mind. He wants to know where he should invest that money to get good returns. Well, here's the thing, Ranjit, if you have no goal in mind, why 5 years? Why not 10 or why not 20 years? You're young enough to put aside money for a fairly long period of time. So, Vishal, I'm going to twist his arm on this. Let's assume he has a 20-year horizon. Where would you like him to invest his money?
Ranjit, good to know that you're young and you have the risk appetite to take on some amount of equity exposure. I think the aggressive growth portfolio that we have may be a good one for you to start with. It will give you both diversification as well as a good quality of portfolio managers that will meet your objectives.
That's a wrap on the show. Vishal, thank you so much for answering our questions. Remember, you can write to us if you have any question about anything to do with money, whether it's a credit card or a loan or a savings account. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen. Also, at the end of this month, we'll do a special year-ender. There'll be wonderful guests in the studio. Dhirendra Kumar is going to fly down from Delhi. Ramdev Agarwal, Rashesh Shah, Pankaj Razdan, all of them are going to come into the studio and answer questions. So if you'd like to ask a question or you'd like to be part of the show as the audience, write to us. Email ID is at the bottom of your screen. Thank you so much for watching Investor's Guide. Stay with ET now.